Hey guys, Josh from Cardfight Empire here today, and welcome back to the second installment of our FutureFight Vanguard series. Today we're going to be talking about the Brave Altmile deck coming out of the Character Booster 1 set, or post Character Booster 1. I think it's a pretty good deck. It was actually unexpected because uh, everyone, I guess, like ever since Brave came out for Royal Paladins, everyone just assumes that Brave is bad, and like all these speculations about Brave. But this new deck is actually quite good. After I played with it a couple times, I actually like it a lot. Um, so without further ado, let's get into the deck build that I had for it. So starting off with the grade threes, we had the new Altmile. The new Altmile is amazing, to be honest. It lets you, before, I think I forgot the first skill a lot when I was playing my playtests, so you guys will notice that. But at the beginning of your ride phase, you can choose up to one card from your hand and call it the Rearguard Circle, and that unit gets 4K. So, the thing is, you have to call a unit for the unit to gain 4K, which I guess could be kind of like meh, like if you don't have a good unit to call, but that's very, very good that you can call before striding. But also beware that since it's beginning of the ride phase, you cannot ride this card. You cannot use that skill the turn you ride this card, because once you ride the card, it's no longer the beginning of main or ride phase. The GB2, when you can't stride, is when you're in Brave and this unit attacks, you choose up to 5 of your rear guards and give them plus 4K. So it's basically like a Platina Ezel. If you guys remember that card, it reminds me of that a lot, and it's just very, very good. Like when you get to that like late point in the game where neither player can stride and you guys are just fighting each other with basic abilities, this is one of the best ones I think out there, ranking up with old Chrono Jet's guard restriction and Asha and old Altmiles +5 to the front row. Um, the stride skill is you can choose up to one card from your hand and call it to rear guard, and then choose one of your units with a brave ability, and it gains plus 4,000 power. Now for this ability, you actually don't have to have the unit, or like you don't have to call a unit from your hand. Since it says choose up to one card from your hand, call it, and then choose a rear guard with the brave ability. So you can choose 0 out of your up to 1, and then you can choose a card with the brave ability on the field and give it 4K, which I did a lot. So we ran 4 of the new Altmile, 3 of the old Altmile, 1 Staff of Osius, Staff of Oath Osius. I really liked this card, as you could just call it out, and then you can, at the end of your turn, you can return it to your hand. It's Brave skill. It gives you stride fodder, which is pretty good because we only run 3 grade 1 stride fodders on this deck and 8 grade 3s. So if you ever need that, you can just go get it. And then also when it's placed on the rear guard, it gets 6,000 power, so it's an insta 16k attacker, which is pretty good. So we played 1 Flying Swallow Night Klaus, and these probably won't be the English names because Air uses the Japanese names translated. But it's basically it comes out of the new trial deck. When it's placed on rearguard, if you have a Vanguard with Altmile in its name, you can choose one of your other units, and that unit and this unit gets plus 2,000 power, which is very, very good because you just, during the battle phase, you're calling a lot of stuff, and when you call it during the battle phase, you can give itself 2K, making it 11, which is a common number to hit, and then giving something else 2K, which could possibly change your column. And then also when it hits, you can bounce it to hand to keep using its skill continuously. So we have 4 Read-On, 1 Scramble Griffin, 2 Slayman, 3 Albion, 1 Hope Song Angel, really good tech, 3 Stride Fodders, We ran 2 of the Regius PGs, those are the new ones, and then we ran 2 of the Hope Keepers, the other PG. We ran 3 Selene, the Grade 1, Grade 2 and deck card. Then we ran 2 Support Warlock of Damascus, it's our counter charger. We ran 2 starters, which a lot of people don't really understand why I ran 2 starters. For this deck, hitting Brave is very essential, and I've always been looking for a way to hit Brave without losing, so to say. So the whole thing that people had a problem with when it came to Brave the first time around, when it came out, is I have to have 3 cards or less in my hand, so I have to be losing really bad to use Brave. Well, with this card, you don't have to be losing really bad anymore to use Brave, because it just automatically at the battle phase puts you into Brave for counter boss 1 and putting it into the soul, and you get to draw a card from it. So it makes you not have to be behind, but you can actually be ahead and still using Brave skills, which is pretty good. I ran 8 crit, 4 of those being the Altmile crit. I ran 4 Gliding Eagle, which I was looking at this card, and it literally does the exact same thing as Margol does, so I don't really understand why it was released in a different card format. Maybe if there's some Royal Paladin deck that runs more than 4 draws, they can run 8 Margols now, but other than that, I don't see a reason for creating a brand new one. And then Knight of Pretty Sword, which is our heal trigger. So that's the deck. The G Zone. So we ran 1 Holy Dragon, Brave Lancer Dragon. Now, this card is obviously our ace card, and I'm actually really sad that during any of the playtests that you guys will see, I didn't actually go into it at all, because I never found myself in a dire, this is a card that saves you from a dire situation in this deck. Ideally, I would say that you want to have 0 cards in hand when you use this card's effect, but I just never was at that point, so I never used it. We ran 4 Blazing Sword Fides, or Fides, however you want to say it. So Fides actually put in a lot of work because of the starter. You can just put yourself in Brave without having to be 3 cards or less actually. So since during the battle phase it makes all your Brave skills active, it makes Fides active too. So it becomes your card that you use to retire a card on your opponent's board, which became very useful in matchups you'll see Angel Feather. I retired a Nurse of Broken Heart with it. You can retire starters. It's just a very, very good card. Knight of Lore Selfies, we ran 1. Now this card puts you in Brave by binding, when you attack, you Soul Blast 1, and you bind any number of cards in your hand, which I usually just bind all the cards in my hand, just so that I could drive check 3 and be at Brave still during my entire turn. But you get to bind all your cards, and then you get to give a unit 5k, and at the end of the turn you put all the cards bound back to your hand, which is really, really good. However, something that I would be careful about is when you're facing Narukami and you bind all the cards in your hand, if they decide to G-Guard, it still counts as their Thunder Strike, so just watch out for that. With Bulwark and the other card, I can't remember its name right now. We ran 1 Transcending the Heavens Altmile, standard in an Altmile deck. I never really went into it though, the game doesn't get that late. Then I ran 4 regular Altmile. So usually it seems like the pattern is to go into Selfish first, Fides, unless you're in a dire situation, then Brave Lancer, but regular Fides, flip Fides, and then Fides, flip Altmile, and then Fides, flip Altmile, and then you're ready to go into, you could go into regular Altmile, and then you could do this and flip Holy Brave or Brave Lancer Dragon if you haven't used it yet, and then that'll be your final strat turn, but I don't think it ever gets to that point in the game. What this deck does need, I did realize, is it needs a way to put grade 2s back into the deck. because you'll run out of grade 2s to call, and it really slows down your aggressiveness. But I ran 5 G guards in this version. So you have 3 Igrain, really good G guard for Altmile, saved me like a bunch of times. So it has a Brave, it gets 5,000 power, and then if you have an Altmile on your Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and it gets plus 10,000 shield. So it actually can become a 41 if you need it to be, and if you're in Brave. Then I ran 1 of the Andragius, which is if you have 2 or more grade 2 rear guards, it gets plus 10k. And then I ran 1 Aglane. I feel like people will complain that I didn't run Sabreeze, but I feel like the game is at a point where the decks like grade 1 7 Seas Rush and like all those decks have like died off or been killed. So I feel like running Sabreeze is almost like not really that essential unless you just want to. But I don't like having to counterblast 2 in a counterblast heavy deck. So if the deck's not counterblast heavy, then I'll probably usually run Sabreeze. But if it is, then I'd just probably rather not, because I know that my opponent's going to ride to grade 3 anyway. So in worst case scenario, like there's no deck right now that's really good by not riding to grade 3. So worst case scenario, you're on grade 3. They're not. You're beating them up with triple drive every turn while they get single drive. So yeah, that's that. Let's get into a couple of the matches here. Now, I will say that none of the people I know were available to play with me for me to make the test matches for this video. So I had to play with random people from the area, which is always quite the experience, because they always range in personality to like either really good or like really like normal opponent, or like really toxic. And I feel like the toxic type of opponent is really normal for area. But yeah, we're getting into first match. We're setting up our opening hands here. I actually got a pretty bad hand because I needed a grade 1. We're going against the Shadow Paladin Luard Ritual deck. So he rides Night Sky Eagle in his turn. I here have to G-assist, which is quite sad. But I end up getting a grade 1 off of it. And then I think I end up getting rid of the crit trigger and one of my grade 2s. Yeah. And then I get rid of Brave Lancer and I think a Fides. Yeah. So attack 12, he no guards. Neither of us check a trigger. He's using Abyssal Owl here to check top 7 for a Luard, which I thought that he was going to discard like 3 grade 1s or something like that, but he actually just ends up discarding the Luard that he searched, so he was just deck thinning. I take the first attack, and then I take the second attack. He gets a draw trigger, which is unfortunate for me as I just G-assisted. But we play our grade 2s out. Something in this deck that is really good is, since you run a lot of grade 2s, you can rush, and rush is really good in this deck because, especially if you check a trigger and your opponent doesn't or something like that, like you can do a lot of damage by turn 2 just by rushing. But his Luard attacks us. He doesn't get a trigger. We do, thankfully, because we only have grade 3s in our hand, and being at more than 3 damage when your opponent goes into their stride turn is no bueno. So we go into the new Altmile. We stride into Selfies. The on-stride skill of Altmile gives plus 4k to Ridon, and then I believe we just attack because we can't really do much with this hand. However, I do use Selfie Skill to Soul Blast 1 and then pretend like I'm binding my whole hand. So in these matches, I never bind my actual hand because it shows your opponent the cards that you bound. So it would just be very like, you can't bind face down from your hand. So he PGs to attain Ritual, I'm guessing. And then he G-Guardians, which I don't know why he G-Guarded that, but I can understand the PG because that's a common play for the Ritual deck. However, he's using Ritual to Stride right now. And he actually decides to go into Diablo for the first Stride, which actually shocked me because I was expecting Carnivore Dragon. But he goes into Diablo, which is why he G-Guarded. But he kind of lost one, activates Diablo. Then he attacks with Diablo and retires 3 for the skill, the stand trigger counting as 2 sacrifices, and I just decided no guard it because I'm at 2 damage, like, I don't want to get rid of my rear guards. So he checks a crit here, I was pretty scared, and then he checks a draw. So I was not dying, but I wasn't really happy about that either, because if I hadn't checked that heal previously, then I would have died, which would have been really unfortunate. But I used the new G-Guard here. I Soul Blast 1 because we're not brave, so I'll give it 10k. We Stride again into Fides this time, giving 4k to Redon. Now that we're GB2, Redon gives plus 3k to everything else in the front row besides himself. So we're using Fides skill, discard a card, and this is another thing about Fides, like Fides and Electos just work so well together, Electos being the starter, because these two cards, they actually just plus you whenever they're together. It's really great. I don't think I ever got through a match where I got to use my second Electos because I damage checked it. But yeah, when you go into the beginning of, so I end up calling this, giving 2k to this, and then Salim. So I have 4 cards in my hand right now. I'm using Elective skill to put me in Brave. So I just kind of lost 1, put it into the Soul, and I draw a card, which actually puts me at 5 cards in hand, but it makes all my Brave skills active. So I actually forgot that I actually probably should have attacked Vanguard first and gave 5k, but I actually forgot it. This was supposed to gain 3k more, even though it wouldn't have changed the number. My opponent here was confused, saying that I wasn't in Brave, but I was talking about my starter putting me in Brave. So we're attacking Vanguard and retiring Morfessa, and then we check 3. We get a crit trigger, pretty good, and then we check our other grade 3. And then we attack 37. He had a PG, which is, unfortunate for us, but we only would have done 1 damage anyway, so. So he's using Ritual. At this point, my hand is pretty terrible. I don't have a PG, Energy Assist, and we just took too much damage like early. So he goes into Spectral Blaster Diablo at this point, and it's just really unfortunate for us because I know that I can't guard a double attacking Vanguard with the rear guards. So definitely the only option, like I'm thinking here, because he plays a full field, so the only option that I'm thinking about here is when he attacks with Spectral Blaster, my only chance is to take it and hope that I get a heal trigger. but I don't think that I end up getting it, if I remember correctly. So he ends up attacking me with Spectral Blaster for 30. And I end up no-guarding. Yeah, I said that I was thinking. That's literally what I was thinking about, what I just said. I was calculating up all the guard in my hand and seeing if I could, like, what I would be left with. Should I choose to guard this with all the cards in my hand? But I wouldn't have had enough to block the rear guards anyways. So best chance was to take it, and then once I saw him get crit, like, it was very unlikely that I was going to heal twice. So that was the game there. Moving on to the second game. That first game was like kind of crappy, but I figured that I should put it into the video just because there will be times when you have to G-assist, and there will be times when crappy situations happen, and I just don't want to show like the best situations and the worst situations. Like some decks can come back from G-assisting, but some decks just cannot come back that hard from G-assisting. So the second match, if I remember right, it's pretty funny. It's pretty short as well. So my opponent is playing Dimension Police, the new Cosmic Hero deck, and we draw our opening hands. And I thought that he didn't have a 1, 2, and 3, but he did. Now that I'm seeing it and seeing the replay, and so I actually get a grade 1, 2, and 3 this time. I get like what I consider to be a pretty good hand with this deck. I crit him. He doesn't check anything. Then instead of writing the grade 2, he attacks me with his grade 2. I'm guessing so that he can stride first, but I don't really mind it. I just played out my grade 2s and I started attacking him. Yeah, so I looked at my hand real quick. We moved battle phase 9 to Vanguard, then 14. I didn't check anything, and then he takes the last 2 for those. And then right here, he just quits. And I'm not really sure why, but yeah, he was at 5 damage. And I guess unless he checked a heal, like this turn, like it would have been rough next turn to have to guard 2 9Ks and Altmile swinging at him. But yeah, sometimes that will happen too. Sometimes your opponent will just straight up scoop. And yeah, it was just really like awkward situation. Like I thought they had a terrible hand, but now that I'm looking at the replay, like I don't actually know why he scooped. Continuing on with our third game, because I didn't, or I guess I should say our second game, because I didn't count that as like a real game. So we have our next player. So this goes back to when I was talking about how I had to play with random players and they could be like toxic or non-toxic. This player was like very, very toxic, and I played him twice. So it's kind of like mind-racking to play him. So he's playing Angel Feather. He's playing the Gavriel version. You'll see some pretty ridiculous stuff happen in this game. It's literally just an exact rematch of the Shion versus whatever that girl's name is that plays Angel Feather in the anime. So he attacks. I take damage, and then I do 14, get a heal trigger, heal, and then I attack and he takes another damage. He's at 3. Then he calls a Nurse of Broken Heart and stays on grade 2. He attacks my rear guard and I guard, but then he attacks 14 and I just don't want to guard for that, so he gets it. Then I attack him, 16, and then I check a draw and a crit. So I'm like, okay, I'm pretty ahead. He's at 5, I'm at 0. And then he stays on grade 2 for another turn, so I just guard it just so that I won't like take any damage. So I attack him 16. Again, he actually PGs. And then I check 2, no triggers, and then I 9. And then he uses no seal to get Gavriel, which was pretty good. So then he strides. And what happens this turn was actually quite ridiculous. I was like kind of a little tilted by it, but I feel like who wouldn't be, if it happened to them. So he rescues, or he uses Gabriel to get the stand trigger, and then he does the rescue check and gets a heal trigger and heals once off the rescue check from Altmile. And then he attacks me, I take it because it's 24, and then he's using the stand trigger to rescue, gets a heal trigger, and then it goes down to 3 damage, and I'm kind of like, okay, that's OP. And then I no-guard his Vanguard, and he gets a crit and a heal. So he literally goes down to 2 damage while I'm at 3, so, in Vanguard, anything can change the tables. Like, that was just broken. Yeah. But and not only like is it broken because like normally I would say, oh okay, like he got these heals, like he can't use them for the rest of the game, but this is Angel Feather and they can just like get the heals from their damage zone easily, and call them to the field and boost with them and return to the deck, or they can just add them to hand for G guarding, and just very very good. So here I stride into Selfies, give 4K to not Belinus, what is this card's name? Slayman? Yeah. So here I'm using Selfies, binding the cards in my hand, and I check 3. I don't check any triggers, unfortunately. And then he uses Gabriel's DB2 to go up to 15. I use Slayman's Brave Skill to... And like I said before in my previous match, I pretended like I dropped all the cards in my hand so that I wouldn't have to show my opponent my hand. So I'm still at Brave because I technically have 2 cards in my hand, only the 3 grade 2s that I just checked. So he takes the damage, which would have been really unfortunate because that turn would have been so much better if it was like at 4 or 5 damage like originally, but he went to 2, so then he strides into Gabriel. I was actually expecting him to go into Altmile a second time. But a problem I think this deck has is like, or when I first originally looked at Rescue, I thought that they would have the problem of decking out, which it seems that they do. I feel like every single clan needs a takeaway dragon, which is the Gear Chronicle card that returns cards to your deck for time leaping. Well, they could give one of those to every clan for like their mechanic, like every time you rescue, return a card to your deck, or every time a card enters Brave, return a card to your deck, or something like that. Like they just need more ways to put cards back to their deck that's not Legion, because Legion's way too slow for this format, and I don't think that it's fair that they gave Gear Chronicle that and not everyone else. But he rescue checks a crit right here, giving the crit to Vanguard. So I actually end up PGing his Vanguard because I just don't want to take the chance that he's going to get another crit. So he gets a stand trigger, stands Nurse a Broken Heart, and then he actually forgets to use Gabriel's skill, the Rescue 2 skill here, and I was thinking that and I reminded him, but then he goes ahead and uses Harut first, so he kind of like changes everything, and then after that, like, I mentioned it to him, and then he just went ahead and did it anyways, so it kind of messed up the flow of things, but he rescue checks 2 triggers, to which I was like, this wouldn't have been the checks that it would have been, so I guess we just decided to count it as no triggers, but yeah, as you can see, the chat is pretty like ridiculous. But he attacks 17, and then I think I guarded with a 10K. Yeah. Then he attacks 43, and I just take it. It's not really 43. It's just like that's where you put the fake trigger power. But yeah, so I stride here. I go into Feed Ace. Now, Feed Ace is very, very good in this deck against Angel Feather. I can see that he has 2 Nurse of Broken Heart in his hand now. I didn't know that he had 2 Nurse of Broken Heart in his hand, but I actually end up using Feed Ace or Electros to, and I use Feed Ace skill, but I don't call anything because there's no need. And I just break even between the starter and Feed Ace. So here he says, am I supposed to be scared? Which I was like, what? I guess so. But I wasn't calling anything off Feed Ace. And he's basically just talking a bunch of trash, which is fine with me. I always welcome trash talk because it motivates me to win. But I check again, and I get a draw trigger, which I add to Slayman. So now Albion is attacking. It's really great when you have these two out on the board because they can both call something on attack. So I actually end up calling something off of Slayman, but something that I didn't realize is that I thought I had another Albion in my deck still, but I didn't. So when I went to go search for grade 2, I believe I just got Scramble Griffin because it was my last grade 2 in my deck. So then I did 19, and then he G-guarded, which he said I'm just throwing away my cards at this point, which I didn't see it that way. I just saw more attacks. But as you guys can see, like as I've mentioned before, like we've been able to use the Brave effects without actually decreasing our hand. So our hand is actually like pretty solid. It's actually a very solid hand, and that's something I can appreciate from Brave now. But he attacks and uses Harut to call the Sand Trigger. At this point, I take a damage because I don't want to take anything else that turn. I get a crit trigger, I add it to Vanguard. Then he rescues, and then he attacks me with his Vanguard. I use the new PG Regius. He checks another heal, so this will make, I think, 4 times actually that he healed during this game. And then he's doing the rescue checks. Thank goodness he didn't get anything off the rescue checks. And then he's using the stand trigger, and then he got a stand trigger off the rescue check. So then he attacks 9 to my rear guard, and then I guard it. And then he just says, I'm done. And this is another thing about toxic people. They just always give up when they think that they can't win. And then he says that I only won because he's going to deck out. But if he would have just kept going, he would have been able to take 1 damage and been at 5 cards in deck. Then he would have drew a card and been at 4 cards in deck, and then he could have had 1 more turn, which he probably would have drew the stand triggers, the rescue stand triggers. So he probably would have been able to do that. And then he got rid of his Refros with doing rescue early on, so I don't know why he chose Refros to go to the grave, but I just didn't question it. But then the funniest part about that match, or like me playing with him, is he was like really toxic, and then after that he challenged me again, and so I was like, okay, you know, why not, right? It was like, I think it was pretty early morning when I did the playtest for this, like yesterday, and there was only a couple people on, so I accept his match again, and then he says, time to fight you with a real deck, and the deck that he's using is Spike Brothers. Now, I'm not saying that Spike Brothers is not a real deck, but it's just funny to me that he said that after using Angel Feather, which is like, you know, Angel Feather is more of a real clan than Spike Brothers, in my opinion. But regardless, we start the game. I get a grade 1, 2, and 3, so I'm not worried. He adds a grade 2, attacks me, gets a draw trigger. Now, like, this guy's luck is like ridiculous. It's really funny, but because he complains a lot. But he literally gets a draw trigger. I think for this game, like, all 6 of his first damage and drive checks were triggers. But here he's raging about the fact that I damage checked his second starter, and he's saying that I didn't know how to build my deck right because I was playing a second starter, and I was like, okay, like people run multi-starters in multiple decks, but here I ride Hope's Song Angel. I use it to call out Redon, and then I play grade 1 to boost it. He no guards, he gets a draw trigger, like I said, and then he guards the other one with the draw trigger. He rides grade 3, plays 2 Dobie, I guard, and then he attacks my rear guard again, so I'm like, you got it. He gets a draw trigger and a stand trigger. Then I guard the first one and I just take the second one. Then I ride do Altmile, I stride into Selfies. And then basically from that point, I attack him, he gets a draw trigger. But he damage checks before I drive check, and I asked him why he did it, and he said because I'm slow, but it was like he instantly did it when he said no guard, but I don't know. But anyways, I drive check, I don't get any triggers, which I was like, wow, I wish I was sacking this guy. But I did 12 to rear guard, then he guards with a draw trigger. So at this point, I'm thinking in my head that he's pretty much going to win, because when Spike Brothers like gets ahead via a bunch of draw triggers, usually they win if they play right, which I think that he should have won this game. I just don't think he knew what he was doing. But he goes into Tiger Centurion and makes his front 2 units and his stand trigger in the back charged. Attacks him for 28, I don't guard it. Then he's using the skill to call the stand trigger. And I thought that he was building up soul so that he could do a really good, so then he gets a heal. And I thought that he was building up soul so that he could do a Miracle Ace turn, which I was really afraid of, but for some reason he doesn't go to Miracle Ace. So I have to stride 2 cards here, which is kind of crappy, but I got to Fides off of it, and plus after that. So I basically used Fides skill to flip a Fides and discard my draw trigger, and then I called a grade 2 to the board. And the grade 2 that I called was a Redon. And then I drew a card because Redon has Brave. I think all your grade 2s that I run in this deck have Brave except for Hope Song Angel. So Redon, since we're GB2, gives 3k to everything else but themselves. And he says, good thing I have YouTube because you take 5 minutes to do a turn. Which is funny, I guess, considering that I'm making a video. But I attack with Fides, Brave skill, I retire starter. I check 3, still no triggers. He checks a crit, and then I attack him for 28, and he G guards. So then I end my turn from there. He strides, and this is where I thought that he was going to go into Miracle Ace. He actually goes into Dirty Picaro, and I just don't understand why. But especially if he had Mecha Trainer in his hand, I feel like going into Miracle Ace was a lot better because he could have gotten Frog Raider off of it. Unless he just does run Frog Raider, and that card's broken in that deck. So, especially against a deck like mine that doesn't have a way to control him during his turn. Like I'm not Gear Conqueror Kagro, so I can't blow up the card and get rid of Frog Raider, so this is very, very good. But basically, I take a damage from his first attack. At this point, I'm like pretty sure that I'm going to survive. And then I told him to flip a G unit. And he's calling 3 cards out. And he calls the grade 1 right there, which if I was him, would have called the grade 1 behind Dobie because he would have attacked me twice with the 21. But yeah, that's just me. But I guess like not, because he would have to do the stand trigger and there's no more cards to boost. I possibly would have just attacked a Dirty Picaro first, and then did the rear guards, but yeah, but he does that. I stride into another Fides. So I use Fide skill to flip an Altmile this time. And then I discard a card and I call a card. I think this is where I started, like, the point of the game where I started realizing that I don't have any grade 2s left in my deck, which is sad. But, and we also don't have the starter in our hand, so we actually have to be brave. So I call Hope Song Angel, or Hope Keeper, sorry, not Hope Song Angel, Hope Keeper, the Brave PG, and at the end of the turn it's going to bounce to the hand. So I attack him for 13, he checks the stand trigger, pretty fortunate yet again. Then I attack him and he G-guards, and I call a card out with Slayman, and then I attack him for 37 and retire Wink, and give 5k to the 2 rear guards. So I took a crit and another crit, and then I proceed to attack him for 41. And here he was like, wow, I'm losing to a noob clan. So I guess this goes back, and then he quit. So I guess this goes back to my whole point of that everyone thinks that Brave is a weak deck, but I actually think that it's become a pretty decently strong deck. What I'm thinking is, if he went into this card, could he have survived? Let's see, that's 21, 31, 36. So yeah, nope. I mean, well, he could have threw down one of the 5Ks from his hand that's not this and strode, but I guess he just gave up. And then depending on like the next turn, I would have kind of lost 1 to bounce this Hope Keeper to my hand, so I would have had 6 cards in my hand. And depending what he could do with 2 counterblast and 2 cards in hand, because I believe that's how much he would have after he strides. Yeah, it would all be up to that basically. But that has been our testing for our Royal Paladin Brave Altmile deck from the character booster. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As usual, let me know in the comments or in private messages or email. All 3 are, readily accessible to me. Let me know what decks you guys would like to see, what decks you would like me to try, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. And yeah, as usual, check out ARG Circuit Series. Great company. They have tournaments for Vanguard and all that stuff. And then check out Wasteland Gaming and Win Condition Gaming. And with that being said, signing out, guys. Have a great one.